welcome to another SiegeGG podcast. I believe this is our third episode. The first one was the pilot one, which was a little bit of a pilot, to say the least, in terms of technical issues. But we're back with our third one, so we
yeah, that's a good sign, I guess. That's a good sign. We're keeping on. We're gonna go
that's all
somewhere.
you could ask for.
Yep. And this time we actually have some Rainbow Six game who have been played. The very first one with Lion in game.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah. I'm not sure they figured out how they want to use Lion just yet. Because it felt not sloppy, but I don't feel like it was used at its full potential. And there's very few occasions when I was like, yeah, Lion made a big difference there. It was mostly like, hey, we have Lion, he's OP, might as well use him.
Yeah, it really depended on the team, it seemed like. There were some teams that were just using him really poorly and some that were using him like fairly effectively. And sometimes it's really hard to tell like what they're trying to use him for or whether or not it's working, because it's not always going to give a direct result. It's kind of more of a supporting action in terms of, you know, getting people to be put in a certain position, to compromise them or to drone them. Like teams are using it differently, but I do think it's not necessarily leading to kills as often as people expected.
Yeah. I mean, one of the good utilization we've seen was from EG against Ronin. They used him in while attacking bank basement, and it was just, you know, activate Lion. While it's activated, just plant the bomb, and, you know, it was pretty much done.
Yeah, when it comes to planting, that's definitely an obvious use case that has still been, I think, pretty effective for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used like as you're going down for the plant, as well as when you're going post-plant. Because when you're going down for the plant, like especially if you're doing like a smoke strat, which we actually haven't seen a lot of this season, and I think works pretty well in combination, because not only can Glass see people through the smoke, then you can as well the rest of your team in terms of if they're moving. So it's pretty useful, but it's not necessarily going to like magically make the plant go down, because people can still huck C4s and smokes and stuff if they're already in position and just need to lean, for example.
Yeah, and a good counter to that is just putting a mzo jammer on a very specific area where you can just like quick peek, throw your C4, and you basically are, well, invisible to the Lion's drone.
Fortunately, Mute's not really the hero we need right now with such a small range.
Yeah.
You pretty much almost have to stand still.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it'd probably be easier if we could visibly see Mute's jammer range in terms of when you're trying to play in it. Because otherwise it's a little risky. You almost have to like practice how far you can move left and right. Because unfortunately, once you're spotted, you stay spotted, which is like you can't make even a small mistake on it, like the slightest movement, and you're kind of screwed.
And the circle is so small that it's basically like standing still, unless you want to like toss a quick C4, like I said, or if it's really not a good and a big counter to it. It's just, hey, we have it, might as well have it, because Lion is very good right now. Yeah,
and we asked Spleck, who's our stats guy for SiegeGG, to kind of take a look at whether or not the attack win rate has gone high. It's not that much higher. It was about 2%. It's a small sample size, keep in mind.
Yeah.
But I think that was versus invites and qualifiers. Went up from, I think, 47% to 49% win rate, if I remember correctly. So it's still about 50-50. So it's not like Lion is auto-win by any means. I mean, I guess it would be 50-50 if it was auto-win as well, just in the sense that, you know, you'd take turns winning. But obviously some teams can win defense as well. So that's not really been the case.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of factor to keep in mind while you do that kind of stuff, especially with like the very small size sample we have. I mean, EG versus Ronin is just gonna skew the stats one way more than another game that might have been closer in kills. Let's be honest here. EG was just the better team. Ronin got a couple good rounds, but they're still like learning. They're still not a new team, but they've got 2 new people in the squad, so still need to adjust. And well, EG, they're like 2nd place in the world right now, so obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that was an unfortunate match for Ronin, because not only were Ronin a team that was already struggling a little bit, but once they went and lost two more people and had to kind of switch them out, it's just yeah. And Spleck's chiming in, actually, I guess it went up to 53% versus 48%, up about 5, yeah. I don't know. I think it's some updated stats. So I'm not sure if he's including Challenger League or anything else in there too. But Challenger League would be interesting to include just because Beast Coast was a team that refused to run Lion the entire match that they played, and they 2-0'd just fine, demonstrating that you don't need Lion to win. It's just helpful when you're not already the stronger team.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I think people are still trying to figure out how to properly use Lion, because it really felt like it was not used to its full potential. I mean, sometimes they were just, Lion and attacking team was just holding an angle, and nothing was happening, and you basically just wasted one charge of your Lion drone. And this is very unfortunate, because it's very good roam clearing, plus time to plant, plus post-plant operator, because you have 3 charge of Lion, so basically you can use one to try to clear the roamers, use one to plant, and use one to deny the defensive team to, well, defuse the diffuser, or at least waste a good 5 seconds in which they basically can't move, or you have wall axe on them. So
yeah, I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb generally too, in terms of how to use it. There's 1 for roam and then 2 for plant stuff, and as long as you manage your time like that. Now, of course, that means Lion needs to be alive all the way up to a plant, which is maybe not as common as you think.
Some teams were losing Lion very early too, which is unfortunate. And
we are seeing really aggressive defense though, like especially Penta and some of the other teams just playing super aggro defense, which is not always picking off Lion early, but definitely picking off attackers. We've seen some rounds like nearly end within the first 40 seconds.
Yeah, and I mean, switching meta like that, being super aggressive like Penta was, is probably catching people off guard more than it is a long-term kind of strategy that you can use, because people are caught off guard of it, like on it, and they just don't know how to react properly on the spot. So I think the more we go in the season, the more this kind of strategy is going to get countered fairly easily. But right now it worked, and that's exactly what Penta had to do, and they banked on it. That's good.
Yeah, and I mean, my favorite part about all these meta shifts, whether you like them or not, and I said this on the Pro League broadcast as well, is that we're seeing so many operator shakeups in terms of who's playing what, and we're seeing sometimes almost Caveira picked more than Ela, which is weird to say the least, that Caveira was never played in Pro League before and suddenly has been quite a few times. Yeah. So it's a big surprise to see so many different operators come out of the woodworks and being played now. Obviously, we haven't even mentioned Blitz as well, which has been a big part of this new meta from a lot of the regions, although for whatever reason, no one seemed to want to play it in Challenger League for NA. It didn't get picked at all, Challenger League felt like such a different meta than what we saw in Pro League, which I thought was kind of weird. Usually they are a little closer to each other.
Yeah, I think people are still learning, and unfortunately, this season is going to be short again, because it's, like we said last week, it's the buffer season, so there's going to be potential to 2-match for people, and that's not a very long time to figure out how you want to play it, so there's no place for mistakes, and I feel like some teams would probably benefit in not using Lion if they're not going to use it properly, to just focus on what you did well last season, improve on that.
I think that's what Beast Coast was trying to do in a way. I mean, I'm not sure. I didn't ask them really their reasons, although I should talk to Fox and see why they chose not to. But nonetheless, they're just playing to the strengths that the game already had. And since there's no new changes on defense, you can still pretty much play. I mean, other than Ela being nerfed, you can still play a very strong attack without Lion by playing to the strengths attack already had prior to the season.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see what people will do in the long run. But yeah, I am not sure where it will go and how it will improve. I think one of the thing that we might see in the near future is just timing between entry fraggers and just the Lion ability and someone who's also droning, because having Lion doesn't you still need to drone effectively, and I think it's something like the timing between those 3 people are still trying to figure it out. Like overall, it felt unfinished and unpolished.
At least the Ela nerf is helping the defensive side not be so kind of, I wouldn't say overpowered, but just not really like you couldn't really effectively control roam the way you could before. And I think that's benefited the game. It's just maybe some of the other stuff needs to be toned down a bit. We've also seen very, very little of Finka's ability used due to a variety of reasons. I mean, obviously it doesn't benefit Pro League caliber players as much.
Was she used a whole lot? I haven't noticed.
Fink has been barely used. I wouldn't say a lot. I don't know the stats on it. Maybe Split could tell us, but it's been a very low pick rate, I would say, for Finka, even in Challenger League or Pro League. So it's just been something that operator obviously doesn't necessarily see as much high use in competitive play as, say, Lion does. And that's down to the way that competitive is played differently, as well as the skill levels are different. And I think that factors in when you decide, like when people are complaining about whether or not an operator is balanced or not, you have to consider the context of like Lion's not as bad in some ways at lower levels because teams aren't as coordinated, but at higher levels it's really unbalanced. And then the opposite kind of for Finka, where Finka is not as beneficial on coordinated teams as it is uncoordinated teams of amateur players.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like one of the biggest buffs she had was obviously the recoil control, but it's not something that is valuable enough and competitive level to really matters. Other than that, it was like the resistant to flashes and Ella's mine, Grismot mine. But then Ella is not played at all, or basically non-existent at this point. So it's really, she's not bringing a whole lot. And I mean, the HP you get from it is just, well, Pro League level, you'll get one-shot headshot most of the time. So it's not really worth it. Doesn't bring a whole lot. I mean, the thing is, it's not that she doesn't bring a whole lot. Is what are you gonna sacrifice to get what she brings?
Yeah, and maybe that'll make a difference when operators are getting banned.
Yeah,
maybe that's more of an opportunity then,
probably,
because you know, if Lion gets nerfed, for example, and then operators start getting banned, besides Lion, there's a chance that Finka has more of a role just because certain other operators are out of the mix. And that's the nice thing about having so many operators, and the goal to have all those operators plus the pick bans means it'll just be a situation where like there's a lot more opportunity to play different operators. And I'm glad the season's kind of bringing out a lot more different operators so that once it has a situation where, you know, things get banned that you're used to playing, the flexibility that people have been showing now is going to have to come out again.
Yeah. And what someone pointed out that, yeah, Finka's value also come into denying the barbed wire in a sense, because you kind of walk fast through it. But most of the time, people just deal with it by destroying it with grenades. So I don't think it's enough to, you know, justify removing someone like Buck or...
someone already gets nades.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who gets nades and can do more, much more, and be impactful as a teammate. But I mean, for like casual game, she's good. She's fun to play with. I'm having fun to play with. And I think you were right with the ban. It's maybe she'll get the time to shine at this point, and I think that's true for a lot of operators too. Because when you kick or ban, let's say Hibana, well, we're gonna see a whole lot more Thermite, I think, depending on the map. That is.
Spleck brings up a good point as well. And if Smoke gets banned, for example, then Finka becomes a lot better. So, and we've seen, for example, in the R6 TMs, which we'll get to in a minute, like that a lot of the pro players just for fun are banning things like Mira. So, you know, staples of defense. I can imagine Smoke being part of that as well. So if a team is really attack aggressive heavy and wants to be able to run a Finka, they can ban a Smoke, and now all of a sudden the biggest downside to running Finka is now off the board. But obviously all that comes next season. That's not something that we're going to be dealing with right now, so I wouldn't expect a change at the moment. But it's all stuff to kind of think about as we work our way like through these 3 months towards that.
Yeah, well, this season is really important in a way that you don't want to lose your spot in Pro League because you want to be there for the next 6 months. That's really what's at stake here. It's not even like winning the finals, really. It's just staying in the league while you can.
Yeah, just not getting relegated out is like
that's the big goal.
Or
right
getting
now.
in if you're Challenger League.
Or getting in if you're Challenger League. Obviously, we're looking at Biscos here. Had a pretty good run in the qualifiers. Gotta say, I was impressed.
Yeah, they seem to have stepped it up. I think. I mean, they only made one roster change. Yeah, and that was Waffle, who didn't necessarily perform super well in terms of frags and stuff. I think he was doing a good job as the operators he was playing, but I think it's going to take some time for that synergy to get there. But if they've got it down, I'd say by the time they hit relegations, there's a good chance we could see them potentially work their way in, because you have teams like Ronin and Era that are really struggling that could get relegated out against a team like Beast Coast. So there's definitely a chance we could see them actually make their way into Pro League.
Yeah, and I mean a grudge match between Beast Coast and Era for that qualifier. That would be interesting. I would like to see that.
I mean, I hope we see something like that. I know relegations are going to be really important, and I imagine there's a chance we'll be casting those from the studio. I don't know for sure or not whether
The
that's the case.
relegation usually are casted, right?
Yeah, so we probably will be casting those
Probably.
because those will be a big deal. So.
Well, they're pretty much the next pro team in that match. The winner is basically the next pro team who's going to play in the pro league. So yeah, they really are an interesting match to see.
And we'll see how the final matches go in terms of who goes to LAN and stuff. It's hard to predict always who will go to LAN, but we have such a strength gap right now that I think it's a little more clear who, like for example, from EU probably will, but NA is like also has some teams that have been struggling in terms of their performance stepping it up. Teams like Rogue, obviously EG are a very strong candidate. Like that's pretty clear that if there's two going from NA, there's I'd say a very, very high chance one of them is EG unless something happens with that team where they, pull a rogue and start playing really bad all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, speaking of like pulling a rogue, I was expecting Space Station to perform way better than that. They did well. They still won, but
yeah,
they were struggling on some point, and some decision they made, it just felt wrong and just not really professional level.
Yeah, I hope that was just first play day jitters. I hope, because it definitely felt like I was expecting a much stronger performance from them as well as I was expecting a 2-0, and that's not to bash the other team. That's just the case of I felt like SSG were going to be really strong, and they seem to make some mistakes. They seem to not necessarily be as coordinated as I would have expected from them.
And it was some really, really, really simple mistakes that usually are easily fixable. It's just you need to think when you play, because like throwing a 5v2, it's kind of insane. And they just basically rush the defender one by one, and that was under the Lion's influence. So maybe not relying on Lion too much. That was just it. They saw, oh, I see the outline. He peeked and he lost a gunfight. That's givable.
That's why I'm looking forward to the round robin format, because like teams come in out of a gap on the season. Like there was no previous season during the winter. There was just the invitational, and so they had to go off of was scrims, and there was like a completely new meta, and so you come in and like maybe you're not going to be playing as well to your strengths yet. So it's a question of whether or not they're really taking a look at the matches that they played, like making up for those, and then they can potentially come back as strong as we're expecting them to for the next match. But it's hard when you can only really play 2 or 3 matches in a season in this current format.
Yeah, it's I think whenever we have a discussion about Pro League, it always comes down to the format. I think it should have changed a long time ago.
Well, I'm
finally we get it, so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because it's not just the format changing; it's the format changing plus a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, sure.
So, but it's nice that we get to see a lot of it play out right now in terms of seeing how it'll work on R6TM at least. So just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, R6TM was basically an organized 10-man system with ranks and things like that. It's in some ways like an improved version of ranked, but a little bit different in terms of there's no group queuing and things like that. It's solo queuing only. It was organized by Kix, and I believe Taro is doing a lot for it as well. And they basically merged with Faceit or partnered with Faceit to run it through their platform. A lot of it's still done manually. It's not integrated into the game, but they do at least provide map banning and stuff like that. So basically the way it works is you queue in to the system, and then once there's 10 people queued, it grabs them, picks 2 team captains, has the captains take turns picking players. Then they take turns banning maps and banning operators, and then play their single best of 1 match. And then the results go towards your rank and stats, the kind of team, your elo sort of thing, and you rank up and whatnot. And the pro tiers, which are specifically pros invited in, have some different rules in that they have the operator bans, whereas the lower tiers don't. But at least at the pro tier level, which a lot of pros are actually streaming, which is nice, you get to see a lot higher quality of play than you would see them playing ranked, or you don't get to see scrims. So I'm finding myself watching a lot more of these pro guys playing on their streams now, because I'm going to get to see and learn a lot more from what they're doing, because I'm going to get to hear like more pro level communications. I'm going to get to see like actual serious play, not just ranked trolling, things like that, because where they have no incentive once they're already diamond and ranked. So I was watching Canadian, Chala, Benji, just a whole bunch of guys yesterday. Like it's been fantastic, and I hope that's a learning opportunity for a lot of people on non-pro league days.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Probably what I'm gonna do as soon as the podcast is over. Just go there and play. I'm gonna
Unfortunately
be
for me,
playing.
I have to play on EU because
Yeah.
because of ping rules mean
Right.
if it was EUS maybe I could fudge it, but the rules are CUS, and my ping from Poland is not going to qualify for CUS. So unfortunately I will be on the EU queue, but nonetheless, yeah, it is open to everyone as of today at noon local time or noon.
Well, it's past noon
time
in North America, and I think it was Eastern time, so we're good.
Yeah, exactly. So it's open for everyone now. As far as EU and NA, I believe APAC and LATAM will be coming later. I'm not sure when, but Kix is trying to roll out stuff in kind of like small bits to try and make sure things are working and get things going. I think it's going to be very successful because it's definitely an improvement over ranked. We were having a discussion about that just before the podcast as well, about all the reasons this is an improvement over ranked for people that want to actually play serious, want to have communication, want to have a community-based system where reputation matters in terms of like if you're a hacker and you're a known hacker, you're donezo. If you're toxic, you're done. I mean, ranked has gotten better about that. We saw a huge amount of bans going on yesterday for toxic behavior. So Ubi is not sleeping on that. They're definitely improving on it, but it's still not completely the same yet. Although, as someone said, ranked is not in beta. Or I mean, ranked is in beta, but RC6TM is not in beta. So it's kind of a funny flip.
And there's two things I'd like to add about the R6TM is, well, to me, from past experience, when it was fully run on Discord, it's probably the closest you'll get from a competitive play at a casual level. It really felt good. People are communicating. People want to win. People want to work with the teammates they are with. And it's just amazing. And also, before that, there was no real way to get yourself known into the scene unless you started at the beginning or sneaked your way in and tried to get friend with like some pro league players. It was basically go for play, try to win, try to impress people while you play, and that was it. But right now with R6TM, if you're individually a good person and you're also good at the game, well, and you grind and you get up there in the ladder, well, it's a good way to get yourself known and maybe get picked up by a Challenger League team or, things like that. So that's really, really good for the competitive scene too.
It's like 10-man open mics, basically.
Yeah, right. It's amazing. It's a great opportunity to anyone who want to get involved in the pro scene or competitive play in general.
Yeah, for those of you who want to check out more information, it's just r6tm.pro is the website. That's .pro, not .com. So just check it out there and you can find all the information. But it is open now, so today's the day to get cracking on it because the queues will be definitely cracking because people are anticipating this and very excited for it to be going on. So now's the time. Unfortunately, you can't queue with anyone else, so it's not going to be a system where you're going to play with the stack. So you still have to play ranked if you want to do that. Unfortunately,
it is solo queue only right now, right? I think Kix did a big Q&A where people were asking questions. I think there might be in the plan for the future to get some queues going on, so maybe 2s or 3s, or maybe even 5-stack fully. But for now, I think it was only solo, and I think the priority for them will be to work towards getting APAC and LATAM into the system. So I don't think we can expect it soon, but it's still in plan, so that's great.
I think in this way, though, it acts as like some nice speed dating for potential teammates in the current system. So that's kind of nice as well.
It's going to maybe accelerate the NA shuffle with everyone playing with everyone. Side effect right here.
Most of these people have already played with each other, but yeah, I could see someone like just really like getting along playing with someone in R6TM and be like, you know what?
As well, go pick him up.
Yeah. Not that we didn't have enough. I'm sure there'll be potential more. Like, I feel like, I mean, I know some potential shuffles and stuff like that for NA, but I feel like come Monday, all of a sudden there'll be more shuffles than we even expected. Like more, because they're only half the teams have played, right? And a lot of these teams like wait till the last second to announce roster changes and things like that.
Well, even Ronin waited after the game for a player.
Yeah, finally announced him like after they've already lost.
That was good.
GG. Yeah,
that was really
I think orgs really need to get on top of their their PR. And it's funny
Yeah.
because orgs are mostly a marketing system.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to be bad at marketing is not a good sign for any org, because if you can't get your marketing down, what are you even doing at that point? Like, they really need to get down, like, announcing things on time, developing press releases quickly, being on top of Twitter. If you're an org and you're upset about a leak, maybe you're the problem, because there shouldn't be a leak, because you should have been ready to announce it on time.
Yeah.
Although then you have issues like what happened with Most Wanted, where they, according to Rankasm, they announced prematurely something.
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
so you
Yeah.
have to be careful of that as well. You do need to make sure you can do your paperwork quickly as well, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of contracts and things like that.
Oh yeah. Sometimes it can be Wild West right now in the org system. Like everyone is like, yeah, I'm gonna start an org and be big. Well, you have some paperwork to do and some things that need to get done. And if you promise something, well, might be ready to like do it, because reputation is everything.
Yeah, I think part of the problem right now is there's not a lot of transparency on how orgs work, how they're
Yeah.
run, how specific orgs do things, what players are paid, what the contracts are like. And I think without that transparency, a lot of orgs just don't know what they're doing, or don't necessarily have to know what they're doing, because no one knows what they're doing also. And I think that once we start to see some serious transparency in orgs, I think we'll see an improvement across esports. But for right now, it's very much like you said, Wild West, and I think that's kind of hurting esports a little bit, because a lot of these shady things, like what happened with Era, where they couldn't pay most of their players because an investor pulled out supposedly, and they made promises they couldn't keep. It seems to be a recurring theme of teams making, or orgs making promises they can't keep,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't there's no transparency and not a lot of accountability outside of the contracts, and players don't really have unions for the most part, or ways to deal with that right now. I think most people are just of the mentality of being lucky to be getting paid to play a
Yeah.
video game, and that gets abused a little bit by orgs to take advantage of saying like, hey, you're getting paid to play a game, so shut up. I feel like it's like QA testers, right? Like, there's always that, like, what, I get paid to play video games? And then you hit the reality of what a QA tester is actually like, where you're just literally like playing the same part of the level over and over and over and trying to debug it and all this stuff. And you realize like it's actually kind of a grind, and it's not as fun as you would think. Or like, hey, I'm a Chinese gold farmer, not necessarily a fun job. So you have to keep in mind that like it's just the industry in a certain place right now, and hopefully we can all push past that.
Yeah, well, the Rainbow Six scene is, a year ago was basically nothing, and now we've come a long way, and I think it's slowly stabilizing with big orgs coming in like EG, Rogue, and just to name them, like SK and all that stuff. So it's good. We're going in the right direction, but well, in new games, I think it's bound to happen. Like the kind of like Wild West scenario where new org are just trying to bank on a new game that might or might not blow up, and as soon as it blow up, they like try to make a quick bank on it. And I think we're slowly getting past this point, though.
Yeah, at least for Rainbow Six, we're picking up a lot of big orgs, and I know that there's a lot of big orgs that that are still looking, that are interested, that are trying to decide what team to get. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that by the time we start the next season, every Pro League team will be part of a big org. Like, it's just inevitable, because they all got to get picked up, unless a small org somehow makes a offer that is way above what a big org's willing to do, which is probably unlikely. Then a lot of the orgs that are not top tier are going to have to whittle their way down to Challenger League. And so hopefully next season we'll have a bit more visibility on Challenger League to make sure that those orgs are getting the money's worth. Because right now, it's barely casted, and that's a problem for orgs that want to get involved. Is you need the exposure, otherwise, like, you're not really going to be as motivated or interested. Other than if you're just trying to pick up a team while they're cheaper and hoping to ride them into Pro League. So it's an investment problem right now in terms of marketing. So hopefully next season that will be less of an issue, and then we'll have 10 plus good orgs involved, because they're able to flood over into Challenger League and maybe pick teams up a little bit cheaper that have potentially, teams like Beast Coast. I wouldn't be surprised if they go to a bigger org at some point here, just because, I mean, I don't know how big of an org Beast Coast is, but it's not super high level. But if Beast Coast makes it in the Pro League like they're likely to do, there's a good chance we'll see them get picked up by someone bigger.
There's a good chance. I mean, there's quite a few teams that haven't picked up a Rainbow Six team yet. So there's still space. There's still a lot of teams that are not really under, one could say, big org. Just even in NA, Bird University, and well, Era now, I don't think they've they're signing any. They are not signed any under any team or org right now. So.
Yeah, and the EU's really been the one struggling with that. And I
Yeah.
think some of that's due to regional issues. Some organizations only want to pick up teams from certain regions. You have language barriers. You have problems with teams not having the flexibility on rosters that they do in other regions that all speak English or don't have necessarily like the same sort of small country national pride that we see, like French teams, for example, or there's even sometimes those issues with Finnish or Swedish teams, especially if they don't really want to speak English. But then you see like the teams like that are able to be MUT teams like Penta, like really thrive off that and succeed. In fact, now 2 of the Finnish players are on Penta. So even the Finnish are willing to come be part of this MUT team as opposed to just being stuck on a team like ENCE. So I think EU really needs to get over that if they want to be as strong organization-wise and region-wise and have the flexibility that Latin America, North America, and ANZ have.
Yeah, well, ANZ has always been a little bit ahead. They have a huge scene and a lot of supporters for Rainbow Six, that is. And it's good to see big teams going there. I think we were expecting Brazil to get. I would have assumed EU would have got a little bit more big orgs before NA, but I'm glad NA did anyway. I think the next step is going to be EU, and at some point we're going to see APAC. APAC, a good scene, a scene that definitely showed up at the invitation as potential. I think they're going to be the last to benefit it, but they'll get there.
It just really sucks what happened with Ainz after they could finally win prize money, and then they just fall apart.
Yeah, unfortunate.
But at least we still have teams like Cryptic, Mindfreak. I think Mantis is still doing decent. So like APAC still has some teams. The problem is they have 4 regions, and a good chance of them are not so great.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're getting there slowly. The game is way ahead of where we thought it would be like a year ago. So the last couple months of Rainbow Six have been absolutely insane into like the scene development and just the game overall. And with the developer just going behind it and saying, yeah, we're gonna support the game for a good 10 years now. So that's just also super good. Just for like the health of the game and just the security for like the big orgs who want to join in.
Yeah, and I think they're obviously looking to invest in esports in the sense that they wouldn't be spending so much time coming up with all these new systems like for the operator pick bans and the attack versus defense side stuff. So obviously they're spending time like thinking about, looking at, testing stuff, and all that costs money. So that is an investment because it's not just them, we're just going to make outbreak mode to try and make money and like, screw the competitive scene. Obviously they care about both. Like, for those of you who complain, they listen to the pros too much. Like, they made Outbreak. Outbreak's not for the pros. Like, they're trying to support everyone as best they can, but they're growing. I think as a team, they're growing more organically than just a bunch of money being dumped into their team. So they kind of have to step it up as they go. But you can also see like strides in terms of them. The toxicity thing, I think, is a big deal. The fact that they invested heavily into taking care of the toxicity of the community is really going to improve stuff like ranked. Obviously, we have a bit of a hacker problem at the moment, and I'm sure they're going to address that as well. I'm still seeing Battle Eye bans, so I know that they're still getting people, but the guy who Jalil, who was doing some of the stuff I think with Battle Eye before, had been doing some of the toxicity stuff now. Last I talked to him during Invitational, he said that had been his focus at the time. And so obviously we're seeing the fruits of that now. So hopefully he could go back to improving Battle Eye as well, or doing what he can towards that. So that he's one man, and I'm sure there are other people that are also doing that stuff as well. Like, I don't know what everyone's doing inside the team and stuff like that. But the limited resources, they're trying to invest them as best they can, and I think that will pay off. It's just a case of like, well, every month they're trying to do something. Every DLC they're trying to do something. And it just takes time, but this is a game that didn't actually have the greatest start.
Oh, no. I remember when the game first came out. I was watching True Talent and Tengi playing the game.
I already feel bad for you watching
And I think they had to quit Uplay constantly just to be able to queue together. That was crazy. That was just not a game not something you would expect from a AAA game that just came out. It was insane, and it's like multiplayer only game too. So we've come a long way, definitely, and I think Operation Help definitely helped into improving future patch and DLCs. It's not something that we've seen straight after OP Health, but we're right now we're seeing benefit of it when they can patch stuff way faster than they used to.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that were a result of that don't always show up, that aren't stuff that you necessarily realize, because they had to recode so many things. They had to rebuild so much of the game from the old code. And I mean, obviously, just recreating something that already existed doesn't look like it benefits you. It's like, well, we have the same thing. What did you do? It's like, well, now we can actually have updated maps. Now you can have better netcode. Now you can have a lot more things that you couldn't have before into the old system.
Now you can put the pick and ban system is something you can probably implement in the game just because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, I think that's one of the next things that they need to maybe do in Operation Health on, is the UI stuff. I know is a bit of a struggle. And so that's one of the things that maybe they can invest a little bit more in.
Just do a blog post about, okay, we did this update, and this update is in direct relation with OP Health. And just explain why they can do it. I think that would be enough for people to just realize, oh, maybe Operation Health was actually good and useful and needed.
Yeah, at least we have great community people, though, like Justin and Epi, that do help highlight a lot of that stuff and make sure that the community at least somewhat understands what's going on behind the scenes. Not all games are all that have such great community people behind them. So I think that that benefits it a lot in terms of the average person. But obviously, when our main system of communication is Reddit, you're not always going to get the best best results, because, well, the thing about Reddit is, like, whether you like the community of Reddit or not, it's a very weird temporary forum system where, like, stuff that isn't popular pretty much gets just gets bumped out really fast. And when you have, like, ridiculous clutch videos overtaking important informative posts, it's hard to really communicate across that. And I don't think a lot of people use the Ubisoft forums. So it's a situation where, like, communication across this game is very scattered to Twitter, or to whatever we say during the broadcast, or to what it's in game, or to Reddit. It's kind of all over the place. And there's not a great modern way to really communicate to everyone what's going on.
Yeah, well, we have great community devs behind the game, but there is still a lot of communication that could be done better. And sometimes I think it's not only related to the communication itself being bad. It's just people don't take time to read it. They just skim through it and, like, all right, I already have an opinion. I just read a couple lines and I think it's shit, so I'm gonna, like, say it on internet and just keep pushing my idea. And just take the time to read it. Maybe you'll understand that what they're doing is not for nothing.
Yeah, a big reason I got involved in SiegeGG to do this podcast and stuff was just how well moderated and how well run the R6 Pro League Reddit is. It's because I honestly will pretty much never ever read the Rainbow Six one, just because it's such a different audience. Yeah, but the Pro League one is very relevant and actually good at communicating information, like, pretty fast. So if we can keep up that level of quality for the R6 Pro League Reddit, then I think there is a platform for at least the competitive scene to have a really good communication, really good scene towards that, because it also opens lines of communication to pros, to casters, to Ubisoft itself, if you can maintain that kind of community. And that's why we talk about R6TM as well, in the sense of, like, that trying to do the same thing for competitive play itself, as opposed to just talking about competitive play.
Well, just promoting the game in general is good, because a lot of time on the subreddit, I just stop. I only go there because there's some great artwork sometime, and I just, like, go fast through it. I check it, and I'm like, oh, that's great, cool. I'm good. But most of the time, it's just some random complaint from people who I feel like don't grasp what the game really is about, and makes no sense. And they're just, like, steamrolling this idea they have that is not really good for the health of the game in the long term, and it feels weird, and I just get infuriated. So I just stopped. Ubi, Justin, and Epi are behind it, so I trust them. They're gonna manage, and I'm just staying into R6 Pro League because there's a Pro League discussion and competitive. It's aimed towards competitive, obviously, but I feel like people there actually ask questions, and when they come up with something that makes no sense, they have reasons, and they can understand why it's a bad idea. Like you can have a communication, that's the biggest part. Because on some other subreddit, it's just, yeah, well, there's no way to communicate with people. They're just gonna say, yeah, you're a dumbass. Okay, cool, nice discussion.
Yeah, you're just gonna get like Tachanka like
Yeah,
responses or meme stuff like that, unfortunately. And I mean, it's far from perfect on any Reddit. There's obviously
that's
going to
true.
be a lot of people that are not the greatest in terms of communicating online without being retarded. So if you can even say that word in 2018.
Oh my god,
But,
the R word, the R word.
yeah.
Don't say it.
But anyways, it's nice to have, and so I look forward to. I like the discussions that we'd had in the past on there about like about different holds or different strategies, things like that. Those are kind of fruitful discussions that I think benefit everyone.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we get a bit more variety of those kinds of not just news, not just people talking about like here's the latest thing happening or here's the match results or whatever, but more like actual discussions about stuff. Not necessarily theory crafting all the time. I mean, theory crafting's fun, but maybe some more stuff like really helping everyone kind of understand different things about the game, because everyone has different levels of understanding, and not just that, but everyone has different perspectives on the same understanding. So it's I think all of that will benefit, and that's the point of this podcast. That's why it's relevant to this as well. Is that's the point of this kind of podcast stuff, is to talk about this kind of thing, to foster discussion, and try and do it live so that people can kind of
interact with chat
as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the amount of people tuning in is lower than we would like, but maybe that's due to time. So if people have a better recommendation for a time to do it that we could try and work out, obviously we're open to that, although we have limited schedules and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, right now I'm a very, very busy man, but I think this summer will be good. I think this summer will, I mean, right now we're still testing a lot of stuff, trying to figure out what's the best way to do what we want to do, really. And yeah, every comments on what you could and should be improved on is always welcome.
Well, always theoretically welcome.
Yeah,
if you're toxic, then keep it to yourself.
I mean, going on with the premise that you're a decent human being.
Yeah. Right. Why is there no license to use the internet, right? We'll get there eventually.
We'll get there. I mean, China is always. Anyway, we're going away from Rainbow Six.
But yeah.
All right, go on.
So next week we have some interesting games, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to talk about. All right.
Yeah, there was even some that didn't get played this week from last week. So like one of the Challenger League matches, for example, from EU, wasn't able to be played. So that will actually have to be rescheduled for this coming Monday, for tomorrow. So I imagine then there should be maybe in theory 3 matches tomorrow for EU CL. So that should be interesting. And then because just so people know. EU Challenger League was casted on Wednesday this week because of, I believe, like the DLC related stuff or something like that. I'm not sure the exact reason, but it did get moved to Wednesday temporarily. But it will be back on Mondays starting tomorrow. And then the NA Challenger League will be on Thursdays as usual. So make sure to check those out if you can. We're still trying to sort out like the best way to stream those. So the NA Challenger League was on the R6PL channel and hosted by
R6CL
Rainbow Six channel. Yeah, so that was really really good. We actually had a good viewership of about 1,500 to 2,000 people.
Yeah, I was impressed by the viewership too. Great.
And the EU Challenger League, the Polish stream, Marcio's actually got up to about 1,500. So it's good to see some viewership there, but unfortunately we don't have a good organized place to kind of say where those are going to be. Definitely the 2 places you could probably see them in the future is like at least in German from Verdi's stream, which is ESL_VerdiPones, I believe, with a Z. And then I think it'll be on Rams's personal channel for the NA Challenger League for the rest of this time for the moment, as we kind of sort that out. So it's hopefully will be there. Obviously, you could follow us on Twitter, and we'll try and like announce it as well when those are live, or at least retweet it. But make sure to check those out because those are going to be the up-and-coming potential Pro League teams. And Challenger League needs your viewership support if you want orgs to be involved in that as well, because they need, they need to know viewers are there. So definitely support that. We're kind of going through growing pains in Challenger League, but I'm trying to help out with that as best I can. So hopefully, I'm actually going to spend some time with Rams today trying to improve the production quality stuff for NA for next week. So hopefully by Thursday, production quality be a little bit better, stuff like that. We're still working on trying to get some English caster for EU. Unfortunately, I don't think we have one at the moment, which is you can at least watch it in potentially Polish or German, something like that, and get something to see out of it.
What is the prize pool for the Challenger League? Do you know? Is it still 5K?
I think it's probably the same, but I'm honestly
Yeah.
not 100% sure.
Because yeah, we need more viewership to get more, or to get more money in this Challenger League scene, so the team can actually make some money out of it and just play the game more seriously. Obviously, Pro League is on a great level right now with two major. That I don't think they have announced prize pool, but I think it's fair to assume it's going to be like 500,000 both of them. So that's a lot of money, way more anyway than what we have in the previous years. And Challenger League is still 5K. I think that's a problem. 5K,
Yeah.
first team gets 2.5, which is 500 bucks for, well, now it's gonna be 6 months. It's gonna be 500 bucks for 6 months. That's not a lot. You still need like a job and all that stuff. And obviously it's Challenger League, it's not Pro League, but just a little bit more money would come a long way. Just double that would come a very, very long way.
And I think that's unfortunately a disincentive for the bottom four. The top four,
Yeah.
not so much, just because the chance to get into Pro League not only secures you for a 6-month spot, but also I think even going down to some of the bottom placements in Pro League will still net you some money without even winning it. So obviously that's a big benefit. And then, of course, the support from orgs once you get into Pro League will be much, much better. So there's definitely financial incentive to be top four to get out of Challenger League. It's just unfortunately the teams that are below that don't make it through relegations or didn't even make it to relegations don't have a lot of incentive not to disband during the 3 months off. Because for people who don't know, Challenger League is not being expanded to 6 months at the moment. Although who knows, they could always change their mind in terms of last minute and improve that. But as it stands right now, it's only scheduled for the second half of next Pro League season. So it'll only be the second 3 months of the round robin. So basically after that DLC release that's in the middle of the season will be the next Challenger League. So it's a huge amount of off time, 3 months of off time. Then obviously you're going to have a job. You can't just get paid unless you somehow got a really, really generous org that's going to pay you to train during the meantime, especially if you're bottom four. So I think we're going to see a lot of shuffle in the bottom four of Challenger League, but that provides a lot of opportunity for all these teams that are kind of messing around at R6TM, playing Go Fours. If you see that as an opportunity for yourself, there's a good chance those bottom four spots will open up. We saw qualifiers this time, for example, definitely have those bottom four open. So if you practice and train hard, you could potentially get into the next Challenger League.
And I mean, the bottom four of at least NA is kind of like we were talking about it earlier. It still is the Wild West down there. There's not a lot of like great team, and it's usually there's a clear line between the top four and the bottom four of Challenger League on NA. EU even maybe less so, but on NA there's a big skill gap, and if you are willing to put the time, well, there's still a great opportunity in NA to just pierce through it and just make your way.
You can see the gap is going to be obvious between NA and EU when you see the number of teams that sign up for Go Fours and community cups and things like that. It's not just Go Fours though. Like EU has a ton of different community cups and other tournaments and LANs. Like they have a huge amount of support that NA doesn't have at the moment. But I think having this upcoming LAN in NA and then also having Austin DreamHack, that's 2 NA LANs within a month of each other. So I hope that kind of stuff brings up, these things, makes it so that they're approved. Like, for example, you saw the Northern Arena is another example of something in NA that's helping, because you saw that directly help when Eva Waffles, who went from playing with Fox, is now on the top Challenger League team. So he has a chance now to be in Pro League because of a local LAN. I mean, maybe he was already potentially going that direction. I don't know the inside story on that, but I do know that it was in some ways a direct result of him playing successfully with Fox in the Northern Arena during the Invitational and stuff like that. Those LANs really help showcase the performance. And like you said, now R6TMs provide some of that as well. So maybe if Go Fours, aren't getting the support we need, maybe R6TM will help with that for NA.
I think it will. Definitely think it will. No doubt about it. Mostly for individual player, but it's also a great platform to just get to know people and maybe make a team together. You play a game, it goes well, people are communicating, people play their roles. I mean, you can, just decide, hey, why are we not making a team? Why are we not playing Challenger League?
Well, yeah, why not?
Why
I
not?
mean, go fours haven't been the best, and
No.
unfortunately, I mean, personally, I think one thing we could do to improve that is just ban pros from playing. Like that would be like step one, because right now, like usually it's just going to be a pickup team of pros stomping. I mean, it's been less so during the pro league season when they're getting plenty of practice
Mhm.
anyways. They don't need to be doing the go force because they're too busy scrimming. And maybe now that R6TM's there for them to play as well, they won't feel like they need to do go force for weekly practice. So there's a little more opening up in terms of opportunity for go force. So now's a better time during the pro league season. And now there won't be an off season for pro league. So it should be a lot better going
Mhm.
forward for go force, but at the same time, they're a little disorganized. And unfortunately, I think the downside of so many teams signing up is it also means you have to
So
dedicate
long.
much more. Yeah, and by the time you get to the top, you're so exhausted. It's hard to win at that point. So it's going to be hard to kind of use that as your platform, as your showcase. Hopefully, we get more people organizing small tournaments and things for people to play in. CCS, I'd say, is actually probably one of your best opportunities to get noticed as a
Yep.
team, rather than go fours. There's also some other ones like IEG and stuff like that. There's other small tournaments. So I would recommend teams that are struggling to deal with the go four situation to, look at some of those alternative tournaments and see if that might be an opportunity to at least get good practice, showcase your team off a little bit, get some interest from maybe an org, see what you can do, and at least work out your team outside of R6TM.
Yeah, well, Go 4 is just a big mess because you spend most of your time playing a Go 4, you spend doing basically
Waiting,
nothing. Waiting.
playing T-Hunt.
Exactly, waiting, playing T-Hunt, and it's just not interesting. If you want to promote this, one way of doing it is streaming it, but the streamers, there's just so much downtime that it's not worth it. It's just, the Go 4 is in a weird spot right now where they either need to decide to be very, 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 very strict about the rules, and if a game goes like too long without being played, just disqualify everyone or something like that, or it needs to be faster because you can, like, it's usually start at like 2 p.m. I think, and it can go up to like midnight, past midnight. It's actually crazy the time it takes to do a Go 4. If sometimes it goes smooth, sometimes it's just you spend most of your time waiting, and by the end of the day you're tired and you just, oh, okay, whatever, let's just play that game and be done with it because I'm bored.
Yeah, at least we have more community casters. So
Yeah.
that's good. So we're getting more casting of the Go Fours. Like Tammy's has been a big hero for getting a lot of the Go Fours casted, even if he doesn't
Hmm.
do the finals. It's just stuff like that definitely helps. And I even am trying to cast more when I have time to. Probably won't today because our 6TM came out. Let's be honest, I'm going to be doing that. Like,
I'm
um,
guilty.
yeah, I mean, it's just it's fun. So we'll see. I mean, as that won't just be a Sunday exclusive. So obviously that maybe in the future do some more Go Fours,
Yeah.
but that kind of stuff will help bring a little bit of visibility to it. But Go Fours obviously, as we're saying, has some fundamental problems that won't necessarily help, but they are good practice for you as a team. I think the path, in my opinion, right now for teams is you do Go Fours to practice your team. You do R6TMs for individual skill and also to practice flexibility
Yeah.
outside of just playing, because ranked isn't going to give you great flexibility with teamwork. It's just going to be flexibility of dealing with a lot of toxic players.
Who's got the best hash main?
Yeah, so I think R6TMs are going to be good practice for individual skill, and as well as working with different team dynamics, which will make you better a team player all around. And then you take your team from your Go Fours and you practice during the Go Fours just to practice more professional level play in terms of slogging through the long day of it, pacing yourself, stamina, organizing, dealing with tilt, dealing with protests, making sure you can get to a match on time. A lot of the stuff you're going to need as a more professional player. And then you translate that over to something like CCS. If Challenger League qualifiers are not there at the time, you're trying to get it to something like CCS or some other tournament that has at least teams that are organized and playing over time. Then you try and translate that to, okay, now I'm going to try and get into a Challenger League and then from there Pro League. And I think that is kind of the career path at the moment for teams, and I think it's a good one, but it's a little bit funky to navigate. But at least it's a lot more than we had going back to say year one.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much just summarized the best path you can take to actually get into
We should make that a post.
the competitive scene. Yeah, just crop that out. That was great. That was great. It's basically everything covered right there in about a 30-second comment on what you should do.
Well, NA
So, all
needs
right,
it, I think.
the question is solved. No one needs to ask a question anymore. Just link the podcast. We got it.
That's the problem with Reddit. Unless the post is sticky, people will continue to ask the
Yeah.
question. That's I don't know. That's the struggle I have with doing something like Reddit, unfortunately. But what can you do? Reddit almost needs a separate fax system for like actual frequently
Yeah.
asked questions.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's hopefully that helps people like that actually are curious about that. I do think that is something that people need to kind of think about, and there's actually a lot more people out there looking to do things like amateur coaching. So if you're a team looking to actually like take the game seriously, post on something like the Pro League Reddit asking, like, is there any coaches looking to get better at coaching teams? Because I know there are, because we've seen the posts, and there's coaches looking to find teams. So like, match each other up, because I come from doing coaching before I started casting, and I think coaches are a huge benefit to a lot of teams. You see teams actually doing it now, especially more now that there's orgs involved. And that's something that if you take the game seriously will help you stay on track more so than just depending on your teammates to keep you in check, because that gets a little drama-y sometimes when you're just a 5-man team trying to like stick it together, because people will have real life issues and there becomes drama over missing practices and stuff like that. But having a coach who can kind of level that out, and I hate to say it, but kind of babysit a little bit, can really help like keep a team together, like keep a team dynamic alive. But it's not a cure-all, but just definitely look at what you could do in terms of like finding a coach potentially. It's something that I think I know it's just like I get a lot of people, and I know Intero and everyone else does as well, get a lot of people asking about casting, like casting tips and stuff like that. And then, there's a lot of coaches that are like, oh, hey, how to get coaching, like stuff like that. So hopefully as more people are interested in doing more parts of this stuff, that they just feel comfortable posting on something like Reddit and looking for someone like that. I mean, unfortunately, like you kind of want to keep it competitive related. Otherwise it doesn't necessarily make sense to be in the Pro League one. It might have to be in the more general one, but definitely try and help keep things going, as well as we could use more community creators creating content related to Pro League stuff or competitive level stuff on there as well. Like, because obviously, videos are popular, right? You look at something like the Rainbow Six Reddit, and it's just full of videos, but they're not the kind of videos I would ever watch.
Nope.
The kind of videos I would watch are not necessarily popping up so much on the Pro League one. Yeah.
There's a big gap. There's basically none right now.
Was it Koxis or something? Like, what is it? KXX or something like that? I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, but he's like the only one, and he doesn't even have great English, trying to do analysis videos. We could use a lot more of that. I'm even working on some myself to try and help that, but I think we could use a lot more community content around pro stuff, which is what SiegeGG is all about as well.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you're looking to do as part of that, I think they're probably looking for staff. Almost always probably looking for potential staff. So make sure to hit that up. But there is a Discord for SiegeGG to contact them, so you don't necessarily need to do it on Reddit.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, SiegeGG is there to kind of fill that gap a bit. There's a big lack of content about just analyzing a video, analyzing some plays that pros made, and analyzing strategy and stuff like that. There's basically none at this point. It's just sometimes it's just stuff that are fairly easy to understand and are a little bit more flashy, like camera spot or drone spot and all that stuff. But in-depth description and just analysis of a strategy is non-existent as far as I know.
Yeah, well, we'll get there, I imagine. But I just wanted to kind of make that call out to those content creators to really think about this is an opportunity for you to make your name known. I mean, you have people like Serenity became so huge because of creating content like that. Macy J as well, is working on a lot more of that kind of stuff. And it's, if you want to be well known, just create good stuff. And right now there's the opportunity there.
Yeah, definitely pushing you guys towards it. I'm gonna watch it if you make something good. I'll tell you that much.
Better watch my video then, Helbee, once I finish it.
Ooh.
Soon TM. But there's one the one thing I want to mention as well that Finster was reminding us, I think it was, that not a lot of people necessarily know unless you saw it in the news, is that relating back to Pro League, there was an issue with one of the LATAM matches in a pretty interesting match between Boot Camp and Team One, which I'll be honest, was probably one of the worst Pro League matches I've ever seen. Let's be honest, the play was just mistake ridden. But nonetheless, that had an issue where it turns out Vision was supposed to be playing as part of that 3/5 rule on Team 1 and was not. They had a sub, so they were really only playing with 2/5. Therefore, the match results where Team 1 won was, disqualified or whatever they had to. I'm not sure if they literally replayed it or if it was a case where they just gave them the 2-0, but they now have a 2-0 scoreline for boot camp for that. I'm assuming that I think they replayed it off stream, but it is now 2-0. So that changes who is moving forward in the winners bracket and losers bracket in Pro League. So for anyone who was watching Pro League but didn't catch that on the Reddit, that is a change up there, which should be interesting. I think boot camp played okay, so hopefully they get their act going forward, but I expect better things from them. They're the team I had wagered on to win. So maybe Vision not being there was obviously maybe whoever they had sub was obviously the better player for Team 1. Unfortunately.
Fortunate. I mean, yeah, that was kind of an unfortunate situation, especially if you have to redo the game like that and just losing. It's unfortunate, but I mean it happens.
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be any VODs of that, sadly. So
I don't think so either.
Keep in mind our stats now for SiegeGG are going to be slightly off because now there's a match that counts towards everything that is not played on stream. So I don't know if we're just going to keep the stats from the one that was played or what, but
yeah, because all the stats are kept manually. It's
yeah,
it's a monk's job, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, we like to shout out Spec because it's a lot of work. Like it's grunt work to like do all the stat stuff, and it helps all of us for sure. Like we take a look at that stuff. It is a good reality check, I think, for a lot of people that like to say like this is that or this is that. Like having the hard stats, I think, is a great way to help with discussions in terms of saying like this has actually been this. Like the line discussion, for example, to actually look at things like win rates and things like that. But the other thing to keep in mind, though, and one thing I've realized the more I use stats is the more you realize you can't necessarily trust them at face value. And that's something I learned as a game designer was from analytics, that you really have to take so many contextual things into account with stats. Like sometimes things just like, let's say even a hit reg, like throws off what could have been a win for a round to the other team and situations like that. And it's not necessarily RNG. This is a game that's not heavy on RNG. It's definitely down to like just heavy complexity. This is a very complex game, and like chaos theory style. Like there's just so much systemic complexity to the game that seeing raw stats won't necessarily tell you a lot, except for a discussion about raw stats. So you really have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much it for what happened this week, really. Next week, a couple great games, like we said. We're going to see Rogue. We're going to see SK. I want to see SK performing well. I think it's going to be their first game under SK, really, because they were known on the flip side before that, if you don't know. So this week's on NA, SK, Bird University, Rogue, and I missed one. Who's the fourth team? Miss it.
Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. I have it. Or no, never mind. Hold on. I'll find it.
But yeah, I think it's gonna be SK Bird U first. I think, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong.
Oh,
though.
It's counter logic.
Counter logic, right. I don't know why I forgot.
Yeah.
All right, so
forgettable now.
Yeah. I don't know why. I forgot about it.
Because of the way they performed in invitationals.
Oh yeah, it could have been better.
Well, yeah, so but nonetheless, I think hopefully they've stepped it up a little bit. I mean, some change-ups, but like I hope they get a coach. Is all I have to say about them.
Because I think that would be great for them. I think they have some
counter logic needs to be like, guys, you need a coach.
Yeah,
you need to practice. You need a coach.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. Really, if they can do that and make it happen. They're going to be a very hard team to beat, that's for sure. Because there's like huge potential.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think we're still waiting on Birdie University to announce their org as well.
I think so, yeah.
So I think, word on the street is that they have a new org and that they're just waiting to announce it. So maybe we'll get like a whole bunch of announcements like 5 minutes before Pro League starts. We'll just see it tag on stream.
Or maybe after the game,
Yeah. I'm not sure which game I'm casting, so it'll be funny to just like be like, okay, I guess this is them.
Just announce the org after the game, like Ronan did their player.
Yeah. Well, maybe during the interview, like
during the interview. Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
So, like, do you have a final word? Oh, yeah. By the way, we've signed that team. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
That'd be a funny way to announce
Final word.
it. Final word.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyways, yeah, I think that about wraps it up for this week. We have the other half of the teams playing next week, so definitely plenty to talk about with them next weekend, and then of course, the rest of the season as well. But make sure to take some time to check out R6TM today.
Yeah, well, I mean, as soon as we're done, that's what I'm doing. That is what I'm doing. Queuing for that sweet face it elo.
Maybe I'll see. Are you in the Invite Pro League one, or are you going to be at a lower tier so people can play?
No, I'm a common people.
Okay, cool. So maybe you'll get to play with Helbee.
I'm part of the common folks, so we're gonna
carry everyone.
I'm gonna have to grind my way to the Invite League.
You'll get there. You're so talented.
I hope so. I mean, talented, I don't know, but I mean, I'll hope so. I'm getting carried most of the time.
Same. At least I've gotten plat this season. There's that. I actually played ranked this season.
Oh, you got plat?
Yeah, we'll see if I can keep it. But
I mean,
now that R6TM's here, is like
yeah.
Why?
Well, I didn't get to. I didn't reach diamond yet on rank, and I think it's gonna be the first season I'm not even gonna try to.
I don't ever try anyways. I'll be honest. I'm a bad player, and I don't try to be.
Well, I say try,
really
but usually it's just get it. But
it's more important that I criticize other people that get paid to do this for a living.
Because rank is basically, if you want to get diamond, just 5 stack. That's easy.
Yeah,
you don't even have to be good. Just 5 stack. That's the way to do it.